We made it to Friday.
Oh, glorious Friday morning, too. Nice and warm.
It is pretty up. It's cold, pretty. Though. I mean, it feels like fall. It is fall.
It's fall now.
It's going to be, after yesterday, though, it was cloudy, rainy.
I'm much happier with it being a sunny and cold day than that, for sure. That's just physically painful.
But for you, your Fridays are a long day.
Yeah, tell me about it.
What time do you usually get done at night?
Depends. If you have a game like last week where West Bloomfield just runs right over the team that they're playing, those games usually end about 9 o'clock, 9:15. Then most weeks it'll be about a 9:30 finish to the game, which that's not the end of the game for us on Civic Center TV and Lakes FM. We do a post-game show for about 15 minutes, and then we are removing or striking, as we call it, our equipment for about 30 minutes to 45 minutes after. So it's usually about 10:15, 10:30 evening, because I stop by the studio after to make sure everything's turned off, and you're back to regular programming as well.
That is a long day. I'm sorry to hear it. But I know the community definitely appreciates being able to catch the games, because now with the limitations this year, it's more important than ever that you guys provide that service. So that's great. High school football is big, though. It's very popular.
It is. And now with the MHSAA's allowance of 1,000 people for spectators, it's even more of an experience and an event, because now it's an attraction once again as well to come out and see those games. And last week West Bloomfield had about the limit, I would say, of people that were allowed to be on site for the game. And I would expect the same this week against a team that's a little bit better than the team that they faced last week in Oxford. We're playing Rochester Adams, going up against the mighty Highlanders, and it's going to be once again a nice night out for football out at West Bloomfield High School. That's
great. Better that it's at least dry, even though the air will be crisp, than sitting out in the rain.
That's for sure.
Let's go ahead and jump into the show. We have a lot to get to today, checking out some of the headlines. The state on Thursday launched a COVID-19 exposure notification app pilot program. And where are they starting it? Where else? Michigan State University, on the campus there, as well as the surrounding community. The app aims to help reduce the spread of the virus following increased testing and additional contact tracing efforts in Michigan. So basically how it's going to work is when a person tests positive for COVID-19, they receive a PIN from the local health department or state of Michigan case investigators that allows them to share their test results anonymously on the app. It's My COVID Alert, and it uses low-energy Bluetooth technology to detect nearby phones that also have the app. This is according to the news release on how it's going to work. And then if a user has been in close contact with someone who submitted a positive COVID-19 test result, a push notification will be sent to their phone once the positive test result is entered into the system. A notification means the app user was possibly within 6 feet for at least 15 minutes of someone who tested positive and shared their results. What do you think about this, Tyler?
Well, I think it means that you know what it means when someone is walking in front of you on the campus of Michigan State, and all of a sudden they get a ping on their phone and jump into the red cedar. It probably means they're around somebody that's got COVID-19. I think that this is a nice step forward. You can anonymously report your COVID-19 test. It notifies people around you so they can take more precautions, and maybe that's good inspiration for people to be following those mask orders and taking those more seriously and taking distancing more seriously, because you're not going to know specifically who it is. It's not going to say alert, 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 guy in green shirt 15 feet in front of you is tested positive. It's going to say someone in your near vicinity has, and so you're going to take those precautions more seriously. And what better place to test it out than on a campus of a university like Michigan State that's had its fair share of problems already with COVID-19.
To me, it seems like you'd be giving everyone the side eye. If you got one of those notifications, I'd be looking at everyone like, is it you? Is it you? You know,
start carrying around the stick that extends to 6 feet both ways and just start, swinging it around.
Get one of those bubbles. You know, that game where you're in that bubble?
Exactly. No, I wouldn't be able to handle that. I'd be too tempted to go and try to knock people over with it, because I'm a villain. Let's just face it.
Hey, if you also head over to Civic Center TV, click on Coronavirus tab, and that's where we post the day's top headlines. Michigan reported its highest single-day increase in new coronavirus cases Thursday, but officials said the high number of cases was really due to a slowdown in the reporting of electronic lab results, and that Thursday's numbers included cases that should have been reported Wednesday. So when people saw that number of over 2,000 new cases, it definitely made headlines, but there was a reason behind it. So the increase, though, does bring Michigan's coronavirus case numbers to just over 141,000. State also reported 32 new COVID-19 deaths. And Michigan is ranked 19th in the U.S. and reported coronavirus cases. And the state is also 10th in the nation for COVID-19 deaths. Again, it's always about the data and the numbers and getting that information correct, because the concerning headline was it was the largest spike that we've seen since April. And we know that we are seeing higher numbers for the past week or so. And so it can be alarming. That's why you have to read beyond the numbers.
Yeah, and we've seen this before when we had issues with labs a couple of months ago, where labs were slowing down, and so they had some slowdowns, and they were releasing more positive test results in batches a couple of days late, and so you'd have 1,000+ cases or several hundred cases that would then say, well, that's with an additional 260 from a couple of days ago that were not recorded because of slowdowns at the labs. Same thing here with this tech issue. Hopefully that is the case, and we're going to continue to see relatively decent numbers in the state of Michigan instead of what was looking like the beginning of a COVID-19 spike.
Also on civiccentertv.com, this is good news for so many people. Michigan stores are now required to accept cans and bottles for deposit return. So if a retailer sells a beverage container with that 10-cent deposit, it must now also accept those bottles and cans for deposit redemption. That's starting immediately. It's the latest relaxing of restrictions put in place by the governor's executive order from March 23rd related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Of the 10 U.S. states with bottle and can deposit, Michigan was the only state to completely shut down the program. It left more than $50 million in bottles and cans accumulating. I've only had like half a coffee this morning too, by the way. Stocked up in people's garages as well as their closets for almost 3 months. And so now any store that sells the beverage containers, reverse vending machines or not, must redeem their deposits. Therefore, a while back in mid-June, when the governor allowed for some of the bigger supermarkets to start taking some of the bottles and cans for deposits, the lines were so long, they still are, with people trying to redeem their 10-cent deposit, because it adds up, really. When you're looking at it, 10 cents a can, and you've been collecting them over 3 months, it is going to take you multiple trips to and from the stores to be able to get that deposit back. And Tyler, I wasn't aware that if a store doesn't sell that particular product, they won't take that can. So sometimes you have to go to Costco, you have to go to Kroger, but now whoever sells it is going to have to be able to take it back. Because I noticed that even the gas station this morning, they still have their sign up saying they're not doing bottle deposits.
Yeah, and this has been an issue, and now that with this new mandate being put out, I think it'll maybe ease that tension a little bit and ease the roadblock that's been there for so many people to return their cans, and has made this such a slow and arduous process for a lot of people in Michigan to get this done. And we'll probably see some lines for a little bit as people do rush back and continue on with that. But I think that this will definitely be helpful for people, and they continue to try to return their cans and finally clear some of that space that's been building up in their homes with just bottles and cans for several months.
I will say, so for the most part, we usually just throw ours in the recycling, but we had so many, I was like, oh, let me go ahead and try to return them. I went to one store, I was like, no, this is dirty, it's gross. And when they went and take back the Kroger cans, I was at Costco, I was like, I am not waiting in line. So now there's someone in our neighborhood, they're collecting them to help her pay for her nursing school. So I've been collecting them and donating them to her. So if she wants to wait in line, she can. The ones that we had here in the office, I donated those to the police department. They were doing a big drive for Special Olympics. So there are a lot of people and organizations that are collecting them, but man, what a pain in the butt.
Yeah, it's definitely a pain as you're continuing to collect these cans over several months. You have one place you put them, and then that fills up, and you try to find another spot, and all of a sudden you're taking more and more space. And it just drives you nuts. And so being able to return these cans, whether it's yourself or someone you're donating them to, finally after so many months of waiting or many months of waiting in lines and bringing them back, or waiting in lines and just deciding to recycle them, that this requirement to take these cans back regardless will certainly be helpful to a lot of people.
But so just head over to civiccentertv.com, click on the coronavirus tab. Also, we put links there to like CDC, try to make it easy for you, as well as the state of Michigan, Oakland County, and the local communities. So instead of going and Googling and searching all around, you can just go to civiccentertv.com, click on coronavirus, and that's where you will find all the information. Also, if you happen to miss some of our interviews from the previous days or weeks that you want to catch, you can also find those on the homepage, because after the show, Tyler, do you do this now, or does Jake help you with this as well? They put the interviews in
That's all me.
Tyler is a one-man machine here at Civic Center TV, but he does put the clips up there so you can watch those interviews as well. So yesterday we had the mayor of Pontiac on, as well as the film critic, matchmaker, and a few other people as well. So you'll find all of that on civiccentertv.com. We're going to take a quick break here. And when we do come back, we have a lot for this today. To end out the week, we're going to be talking to the Redford Theater, also the owner and tour guide for Detroit Urban Adventures. And then we'll be talking cannabis. Earlier this week, we talked beer. Today, it's going to be all about cannabis. And then we'll round out the end of today's show, dipping into politics, talking to our favorite professor, Dave Dulio, over at Oakland University, and then ending the show with Debbie Binder, as elections are actually underway right now. People are voting now. We're going to take a quick break. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Hi, I'm Dr. Faust, the medical director for the Oakland County Health Division. The most important thing you can do to prevent the spread of illness is to wash your hands thoroughly and often. Follow these 6 easy steps every time you wash your hands. Step 1, turn on the sink and wet your hands with warm water. Step 2, apply soap to your hands and lather between your fingers, under your nails, and the front and back of your hands and wrists. Step 3, wash your hands by scrubbing them together for at least 20 seconds. Step 4, rinse your hands with warm, clean water. And Step 5, dry your hands with a clean cloth towel, a paper towel, or hot air blow dryer. If you're using a cloth towel, make sure to change it often. For handheld faucets, turn off the water using a paper towel instead of your bare hand. Step 6, if you're using a paper towel, throw it away. Practice healthy habits like washing your hands after coughing or sneezing into them to keep you and others healthy. Go to oakgov.com/health or call Nurse on Call at 1-800-848-5533 to learn more.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Movie theaters, one of the last industries to be able to reopen their doors. And as they are reopened, they're trying to find ways to remain open because with the doors open, capacity is limited. And a lot of times with these theaters, we think the big theaters such as, AMC or Imagine. But we also forget that there are a lot of small theaters that are a part of our community as well. One of the oldest is Redford Theater. It opened its doors back in January of 1928. It is a beautiful, beautiful theater. We're happy to have with us this morning Steve Overstreet. He is the Special Events Coordinator and the Chair of Restoration for the Redford Theater. Thank you for taking time to be with us on the Oakland County Megacast.
My pleasure. Glad to be here.
For those that have not been to the Redford Theater, tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, yeah, as you mentioned, the Redford goes back to 1928. Amazingly, this theater has never closed its doors because, except for the restoration that we did 5-6 years ago for a couple of months. The Motor City Theater Organ Society purchased the building about 40 years ago after working with the owner for about 3 or 4 years taking care of the organ. The organ is a 1928 Barton Theater pipe organ, which is original to the building. It was actually built for the theater. It is still used. Every show that we still have our volunteer organists play it. And they do usually a 30-minute concert before the movie begins. We use it for weddings and special events and people who rent the theater for all kinds of stuff.
It is amazing for people who've never heard it. I invite you to go and hear it. It's amazing, and it still sounds incredible.
Yeah, it is. We just completed some work during the pandemic on it. So it's replacing some lights and some soundboard stuff. And it's better than ever. And, she's like 95 years old now, and she's not electronic. She's original. And she's still playing strong. So we're thrilled that we have volunteers that know how to take care of it and keep it going. One of the unique things about the Redford, aside from the aesthetic, the beauty of it, is that it is owned by a nonprofit, and it is run by the nonprofit, and we have absolutely no paid staff. We never have. We've done the restoration, almost all of it ourselves. When we bought it, it had been not too long after the war. A lot of changes had taken place during World War II. Nobody wanted to go to a Japanese-themed theater. So they had covered everything up, painted over it, removed all the Japanese accoutrements. And so it's taken us 40 years to restore it the way it looked in 1928. So, it's been an unbelievable experience volunteering there for sure. I've been a member for 12 years, and we got hooked when our daughter had her wedding there, which is only the third wedding in history to be at the theater. Now we do weddings pretty frequently, so it's a really great venue for special events.
And knowing that, what's the future look like for the Redford Theater because of the limitations on capacity?
One of the advantages that we have right now with this pandemic is that it's a 1,600-seat theater, and we're having our grand reopening this coming Saturday. We're showing Young Frankenstein, which is a very popular movie, especially with the millennial generation. And because we're so large, our capacity at the reduced rate is 315. So at that rate, we can generate some income. We're charging more for tickets because we're using these as fundraisers. We haven't had income for 8 months. Fortunately, we had an aggressive board a couple years ago that put some money aside. We didn't think it would be anything like this, but we're okay at this point as long as we can stay open. And we are booking tons of special events for next year because everything was canceled this year, obviously, and almost all of them have rebooked for next year. We have some really, really big popular events coming next year. So we're looking forward to a vaccine so everybody feels safe coming back. But we have taken every precaution that's possible and even gone above and beyond to protect our volunteer staff and all of our patrons against any kind of COVID problem. We're every 4 rows. We seat every 4 rows. We seat 8 feet apart, and the entire theater is open. So we did a trial run Wednesday night with members, and the general comments were that it looks like we're well prepared to bring people back. So that's what our goal is.
Steve Overstreet from the Redford Theater joining us on the Oakland County Megacast today. Steve, you mentioned the Young Frankenstein showing. It's a one-night showing only. Are there plans for other similar events like this or other films that will be shown at the theater over the course of the next several months in 2020 as we're leading into those events you mentioned that are happening in 2021?
Yeah. Actually, the last Friday of the month, just before Halloween, I think it's the 30th, we're showing Hocus Pocus, and tickets are briskly selling for that, so that's good news. People aren't used to having us limited. So, I mean, they know we have 1,600 seats, and it's rare that a movie would sell out 1,600 people, unless we have a movie star that comes as a guest, which we have done often. Some of the things that are coming up in December, or actually November, we're not even positive what the schedule is going to be for November. We haven't picked because we didn't know when we would be open. But we are having two key movies in December, which are the 2 favorite movies of our patrons for years and years, and that will be White Christmas and It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart. Those are always extremely popular. Usually we have attendance of well over 2,000. So we're hoping to show them twice instead of our normal 3 times, which will get in more people. But we have some exciting programming. It's limited, but we're having some exciting programming that people are going to be looking forward to.
And Steve, how can people get tickets? Because as you said, since you're not allowing as many people, are they selling out? Can you buy them online, or do you have to go to the theater?
We prefer you buy them online. Everything's touch free, so we won't be getting close to you and scanning your tickets. You get them, you just bring them in, you tear them in half yourself and throw them in the little ticket bin, and then go on in. We have everything marked off, roped off, and directions everywhere. We have screens everywhere. We have hand sanitizers everywhere. So you buy them online, and I don't think that tomorrow's show will sell out. We're around 200. But I do think Hocus Pocus probably will. It's the #1 movie currently this year because of the pandemic in the limited theaters that it's been shown. And coming to the theater, to the Redford to see Hocus Pocus is much different than going somewhere else to see it, because we have the organ concert before the movie. We have a 50-50 raffle at intermission. We have an intermission. We have an MC. So I mean, it's really going back into the 20s and the way movies were done way back almost 100 years ago. And that's one of the reasons that people love coming to the Redford, because it's not just seeing a movie and leaving. It's an experience. It's experiencing an event, and we try to make all our movies an event.
It is a beautiful theater. You guys have done an amazing job restoring the beautiful, beautiful building. But what's it been like for you, because you do rely so much on volunteers? Are you able to get the volunteers to come back to help you keep it going, or are you short volunteers?
Point we really don't know. We have enough volunteers for tomorrow's event. I know we have a number of older volunteers, and a lot of them are nervous about coming back. So we're relying more on our younger volunteers. They seem to be less susceptible and less concerned or frightened to be out in public. So at this point, I think we're going to do okay. We'll see. I mean, this is territory that none of us have ever gone to before. And I'm thrilled, when I hear that some of the large venues are not selling tickets hardly at all, that we have a patron base that has really been requesting and asking when we're going to reopen so they can come back. So that's real encouraging. The Redford's more like family, and our 40,000 Facebook fans, I mean, they all feel like they're a part of it because they make donations, they throw money in the tip jars. All that goes to the theater and to restoration because it doesn't go to any staff. So that's how we've gotten along for the last 40 years. And it truly is remarkable. And for anybody who's coming into the area who's said, oh, it's an old crummy area, there are massive restoration and remodeling projects going on, including the corner Obama building, which has been completely renovated by Peter Cummings, who bought it. I understand they spent over $1 million restoring it, and it's now open, apartments and storefronts downstairs. So, I mean, the area is amazing, and Grand River is all being redone. Our understanding is that Lasser Road will be redone next spring. We've been working on our storefronts as well, so there's just a lot going on. Java House, Blightbusters, Sweet Potato Sensations. A mural artist has painted 10 murals on building walls in the old Redford area. So, I mean, things are happening there that we haven't seen happen in 50 years or more. So it's very exciting to come and see all the exciting things that are going on.
And it's great that that's happening during a pandemic as well, that the work has not stopped to help regenerate and remodel that entire area. And I know John George is such a big part of that as well. If people have never been to the theater and they want to go for the first time, because like you said, Young Frankenstein is such a classic movie. Oh my gosh, my brother quotes it line after line after line. It is great to be able to see it in the theater such as this. Do you guys have designated parking for your patrons?
Designated parking because we own a huge parking lot attached to the theater. So we don't charge for parking, and we have actually 2 lots that we own. So there will be plenty of parking. We also have security for every event or every show that we do. We always have security, and we're very well respected in our neighborhood. I mean, people walk by, they know us, we know them, and there's a certain level of community protection in that particular area, I think, and we really appreciate that because there's really some amazing people that live in that area that we've gotten to know over the years.
Steve Overstreet with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. He is the Special Events Coordinator and Chair of the Restoration Project over at the Redford Theater. If you've never been, do yourself a favor, especially now. We haven't been to the movie theater in months. So now that you're reopened, there's no better way to go see an old movie, make it a new experience, even if you maybe have seen the movies before, because it's like you said, it's an event. It's not just going to a movie theater. And with that, are you guys going to have like the concession stands open? What is going to be different for people coming in? Will they have to wear a mask the entire time?
Very good question. And yes, everybody's required to wear a mask. All the safety precautions have been taken. We have shields, sneeze guards everywhere, and the concession is open. At this point, we are not serving popcorn because we want people not to spend an hour with their mask off, eating popcorn. But we do have the candy and the pop. Everything is served by our volunteers who are gloved and masked themselves. And our trial run Wednesday night went very well. So we're pretty confident that people will feel comfortable. We have everything marked off on the floor where people stand, so they're 6 feet apart. And I think it's going to be pretty streamlined, pretty easy for people to figure out.
If someone wants to be able to get involved in the theater, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can fill out an application, very simple application online. It's on our website at redfordtheater.com. Or they can pick up a form in the theater and complete it and just give it to one of our volunteer staff. And we're always welcoming new members.
That's great. That's so cool that you've been able to keep this building going, and knowing that and knowing where we're going. If we were to go into another shutdown, how hard would it be for the Redford Theater to keep going?
It's going to become more and more difficult. That is one of our concerns because we're seeing a rise in COVID cases worldwide again, as predicted. But, we're doing everything possible. We're going to be doing a mailing to many of our volunteer base patrons, or our patrons in general, requesting a donation. We are tax deductible because we're a 403B, 401c3, whatever. We're tax deductible. We're a nonprofit. And the other interesting thing is that the theater is on the national and state registers of historic places, which was a real honor for us to get both of those recognitions.
And because of that, are you able to get any grants, or has there been any help from the government to maintain the building and the facility?
At this point, no. We have gotten grants in the past for seat replacement and some things like that. One of the problems with some of the grants is that we don't have paid staff, and that's one of the requirements. And we've never had paid staff. We have volunteer board, we have volunteer committees, we have amazing people, and the theater has been brought from wreck and ruin to the present restored, fabulous palace. And we've done it without paid staff. So we're really reluctant to hire staff so we can get a grant, because there's no guarantee that we would get a grant just because we have a paid staff. But there are some grants that we'll try for. At this point, they're match grants, and we don't have the funds to do match grants. So it's a challenge, yes.
Yeah. It's a challenge, but hopefully you are able to keep the doors open on the beautiful building. If no one has been, you want to go and experience the Redford Theater. And like you said, it's the organ. To be able to still have that organ and it's operational, it is incredible. So quickly, before we let you go, Steve, anything we didn't ask or touch on that you want people to know?
Well, just keep an eye on our website, because we have things posted for next year. We have Tiny Meat Gang, which already has sold over 2,000 tickets. That's coming in August. We have George Chakiris, the Academy Award winner from West Side Story, coming in August. So, we have some exciting things that are coming up. Currently, both of those are posted on our website, so you can review, but we're adding things all the time, and we're praying that we won't be in this position this time next year.
We are all with you on that. And your website, again, is redfordtheater.com. Check out that information. Also, that's where you can get the tickets as well for any of the upcoming movies. Steve, it's been so great having you on with us. We appreciate your time, and good luck this season. I hope things get better.
Thank you. It was great being here with you all, and thanks for the best wishes.
Steve Overstreet with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. He's with the Redford Theater over in the old Redford neighborhood. They are doing so many cool things over there. Tyler, working in Detroit. I've been in that neighborhood numerous times, and for them to be able to renovate that entire area, it's not just the theater. You have the Java House, you have the bakery across the street. It's a beautiful, beautiful theater. If you've never been, you want to go check it out. It's, I mean, hearing that organ and then play that organ, it really does send goosebumps through your body, because it's just incredible, and there are so few of them left here in the United States.
Yeah, and there's so few classical movie theaters such as the Redford that are left in our area, in the state of Michigan and in the U.S., and there's so many of them that just happen to be in our local area. You have the Redford, of course. You have the Maple Theater. That's another one. And I remember I took a semester of classes at OCC before I went into school at MSU, and I took an intro to film class there, and we were required to go to one of these classic movie theaters, the Ann Arbor Theater, the Redford Theater, the Maple Theater, whatever it may be, and see a film. And the Redford was one of those that was at the top of that list of theaters that you could go see them at for that project and talk about that experience. And it's still, like Steve had said, a lot of what they do there is especially with the organ and with the intermissions and with the raffles, is bringing back that experience of the movie theater as it originally was here in the U.S.
It's so cool. So, head over to their website, check that out. We're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast, and when we come back, we are going to keep the topic in Detroit and speak with the owner of tour guide of Detroit Urban Adventures. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jonae Khaldun. I'm the Chief Medical Executive for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. The people who are at highest risk of getting severely ill from COVID-19 are the elderly and those with chronic medical conditions. That includes people with heart disease, diabetes, COPD, or those who have compromised immune systems. People who are in those categories should right now be staying at home as much as possible and not going out if it is not essential. If you fit into one of those categories, those are the things you should do. And if you have a family member who fits into one of those categories, you should be checking in on them and making sure they are following those guidelines. There's something everyone can do to protect the community from COVID-19.
Thank you for tuning in to the Oakland County Megacast. You can catch us Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access. If you have cable, Channel 15 on Comcast, Channel 99 on AT&T. Catch us on the radio, 89.3 WBLD, 88.1 WBFH. And also we want to say thank you today to the West Bloomfield Township Clerk's Office for live streaming today's edition of the Oakland County Megacast on their Facebook page. We want to say thank you to all of them. Excited to have our next guest on with us. If you've ever been to the city of Detroit, which most of us hopefully have been, there's nothing like experiencing the city, though, when you actually take the time to explore the city, not just go down for a Lions game or a Tigers game, eventually when that comes back, but to actually get out and see the city. And if you do, you want to do it with this guy, Bob Goldsmith. He is the owner and tour guide of Detroit Urban Adventures. Bob, thank you for being with us. How did you come up with this?
I've been giving tours first as a volunteer, and that was with Preservation Wayne. They now go by the name Preservation Detroit. But then I started Detroit Tour Connections is sort of a little second business of mine. My main thing was being a lawyer, and Detroit Tour Connections was sort of like private tours, but then I had like a weekly series of tours. But then I got contacted by a company called Urban Adventures that's from really based out of Australia, and they're worldwide. They contacted me back in 2010 to see if I would be their guy in Detroit. They had sort of seen my website for my other tour company, and when I asked what it meant offering at least 2 tours, at least 5 days a week, and at least 9 months of the year. And I did have some friends and family saying, you can't do that, you've got a law practice. And I sort of thought that I could do it. I could offer tours in the afternoons, 5 days a week, and still have my mornings to practice law. So I got it started really back in 2011, and we do like a 9-month season, March 1st through November 30th, and this was our 10th year of doing that. So when I say our, it's mostly a one-man operation. Every year I have a couple people kind of giving me a little bit of backup.
So how has it been for you during the pandemic, especially in the beginning when everything was shut down?
Right. It's been a rough year. We had just started our season March 1st, and then before too long we were shutting down during March. We remained shut down completely April, May, and June, so that was a large part of our season. And then when we started up July, August, September, it's been pretty slow. It almost seems like October is opening up a little more, a few more people taking the tours now, and we've got a little more time left in our season before the cold weather hits, but we're going to keep going this year through the end of the year, and then we normally don't do December. We might also do January and February, just if we get some calls and people want a tour and everybody's bundled up, we'll give them a tour.
Bob Goldsmith with us. He is the owner and tour guide at Detroit Urban Adventures, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. Bob, for those that have not heard of Detroit Urban Adventures or not gone on this experience, take us a little bit into what they will experience when they go on one of these tours. What can people expect?
Yep, they're a 2-hour tour, and you'll meet at a coffee shop downtown when it's a downtown tour. We've got a meeting place in Corktown for our Corktown tour, and then we just kind of go from there. We're giving you background and history, architecture. When we're downtown, there's murals and there's sculptures and there's fountains. We're telling you also about the events that take place downtown, but it's just a nice mix, a real informative tour. We have, as our most popular tour, it's called Detroit's Rise, Fall, and Renewal. And that name draws people in, whether they're visitors from out of the country or out of state, or even some locals like to hear about the rise, fall, and renewal. And I know about it pretty well. I certainly grew up in this area, but I moved downtown back in 2003 and have lived down there since. I'm in a downtown apartment right now, where we're talking from, I guess. But in any event, like when I moved down here, there were just so many more empty buildings. I mean, the David Whitney was empty, Broadway Tower was empty. We didn't have the Element Hotel. We didn't have the Siren Hotel. So it's just really lots and lots and lots of changes over the years that I've been down here. And that's what we're telling people about on the tour, how some of these buildings had like a first life and then so many years being empty and then getting a second life, sometimes very recently. And then telling them the new things that have been built, the ballparks and stadiums and then the new arena. So people get a good sense of what downtown's about just within a couple hours, and plus Detroit's history too.
And with that, during the pandemic, a lot of these businesses are suffering. Has the landscape started to change downtown? Are you still seeing as much growth as was once there, or some of the new restaurants and smaller shops closing?
Right. There's been a couple of closures downtown and some things that just maybe haven't reopened since March. Most things are going on like they were in previous years. Obviously there's no crowds for the ballpark. We don't have the concert crowds. The People Mover's not running, and we used to take People Mover on our tour just, for the heck of it, basically. We get by without it. It's a walking tour, and 2 hours we're just walking without a People Mover ride, but that's one thing that's down this year is the People Mover. queue line is down also. We didn't really take the queue line on our tours. Now I did mention, but one of our tours, we finish at Detroit Beer Company, and you get a complimentary half pint. It kind of comes with the price of the tour, I guess. And they're open. They also tend to have outdoor seating available, so that's a nice way to sort of end the tour. And then our tour in the morning, which is another downtown tour, people get either a piece of baklava, and that's at Astoria pastry shop. They're open in Greektown, or you get a coney dog, and the coney places are open too. So that works out. So again, the tour is basically just like it is in prior years, except without the people who go around. Like fewer people walking around downtown. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and with tourism down, are you seeing more people that are locals taking these tours?
Well, right. That's almost by definition, because we would, in a typical year, get a lot of people from out of the country. And that was kind of a cool thing to sort of be an ambassador and show people from out of the country what Detroit's about. And then we would get a lot of people from around the states as well. And really, probably less than a third of our customers in a typical year were locals. And then sometimes they were coming only when they had like an out-of-town guest or something, or if they were fairly new to the area. This year, obviously, we're not getting the people from out of the country like at all. And then as far as people from out of state, there's some people who are flying, but then there's other people who are taking their trips driving. So we're getting more people from, within a few hours away who decided to take a road trip and come to Detroit. But yeah, we are getting a greater percentage of our customers this year are locals, just because we're cut off from some of the other customers.
Bob Goldsmith with us. He is the owner and tour guide of Detroit Urban Adventures. And Bob, obviously one of the questions when you talk about Detroit, I'm sure the issue of safety comes up for a lot of your customers who want to take these tours. Have you ever had a problem on one of your tours at all?
Oh, no, not at all. And I mean, I've been giving tours since 2001, and then these urban adventures tours since 2011. And no, never a problem. Downtown's really safe. I mean, personally, I've lived down here since 2003, never really had any issues down here, even when things were a bit rougher down here. These days, there's security all over, there's cameras pretty much everywhere. If anyone ever does bother you downtown, let them know that you're probably on camera right now. But anyway, no, everything's been fine in that regard.
Bob Goldsmith with us. He is the owner and tour guide of Detroit Urban Adventures, joining us today on the Oakland County Megacast. Bob, just a little while left with you on today's show. Is there anything coming up that you're expecting will be a greater attraction to the city of Detroit, or anything that Detroit Urban Adventures is doing in the next few weeks or a few months that may be of particular interest to those who are already maybe interested in taking a tour?
Well, we're just offering our regular tours through the rest of the year. A downtown tour in the morning. We've got our Corktown tour available early afternoon. That's another real nice tour, including like the Michigan Central Railroad Station, what's going on that with Ford's restoration of it. And then our Rise Fall Renewal tour at 4 o'clock. If people contact us and want a private tour and want something customized, we're often able to do that. Now, with the holidays approaching at Campus Martians Park, they're going to start putting up the tree, and the skating rink's going to start to appear. And by a certain time in November, the tree's lit up. So it's nice to see downtown, which I assume will be decked out for the holidays pretty much normally. So that's a nice thing towards leading into the holiday season.
So, Bob, since you're full of Detroit history and knowledge, share a couple tidbits with us about the city that a lot of people would be surprised to know.
Well, for one thing, that our population in 1820 was only about 1,500 people. We were still just a little nothing in the wilderness, even though we had been started back in 1701. And then, after being only 1,500 people in 1820, we were at 1 million people in 1920. We pretty much went like 0 to 1 million. We went from a little nothing to number 4 in the U.S. population, and really number 1 in per capita wealth. So that was a 100-year period of pretty steady growth. It wasn't just when the auto industry popped up. It was sort of, in a way, when shipping opened up between the Great Lakes and the East Coast. That's what really allowed Detroit to grow.
That's interesting. I didn't know. And I know there's a big push right now to try to get the population back up in the city of Detroit. From someone who's been living there for a while now, what's been your experience living in Detroit versus the suburbs?
Oh, see, I've loved it, but then I moved right downtown, and suddenly I could like walk to work to my office and just go days at a time without driving. Now downtown can only hold so many people, just the nature of it. It's kind of small, and then there's space devoted to other things besides residential. And the places that are residential downtown are pretty full. So you might be looking at a neighborhood maybe near downtown, and then maybe you could still walk in for these events. You might be a little further out, and maybe you're a bike rider and you ride your bikes when you're coming downtown. But in general, being in the city, whether you're downtown, midtown, somewhere close to where the action is, or just there's other good neighborhoods to live in. And then I think people also find a real sense of community out in some of these neighborhoods, and then even downtown, which is sort of its own neighborhood, and you get to know the people who live here. There's not that many people, and you know, it's cool. Living in the city is really cool.
It's definitely changed a lot, like you said, over the past 10 years. So many people are starting to move back into the city, and obviously it still has its challenges, and the pandemic is not helping those challenges at all. But it's great that you're offering these tours, and when you see Detroit by foot, you see a very different Detroit as well. You can take time to stop and enjoy some of the art and the architecture and the buildings. And with that, what is the one building if people were going to come to the city of Detroit that they should take the time to explore?
Sure. That'd have to be the Guardian building. We show that on our morning downtown tour and on our afternoon downtown tour. You're able to see the lobby. You're able to look into the banking room. This year we can't get into the banking room, and the Pure Detroit store we used to stop at there, they're not open, which is too bad. But yeah, the Guardian building's just outstanding. 1929 Art Deco, way more colorful than your typical building would be. And used to have a nickname, the Cathedral of Finance. So it was in the financial district with just its enormous bank. Really a special building.
Bob Goldsmith here with us on the Oakland County Megacast. Quickly, Bob, if people want to take a tour, do you have a limit by how many people are in the group? Do they need to be of the same party now because of COVID? How is that working?
Right. Urban Adventures has always been a company with a 12-person maximum, and then we're sticking with that 12-person maximum. However, we also have like a 1 or 2 person minimum. Somebody signs up, they're going to get the tour even if nobody else has signed up. So often these days, since business is slower, we might have only one booking, whether it's a party of 2 or a party of 4. But sometimes we might have a couple of bookings, and let's say we've got 8 people, and it's a party of 2, a party of 2, a party of 4. It's possible, since it's a walking tour, to spread people out, have this party here, that party there, that party there, and me so far away from them, and everybody can hear me, and it works out fine. And then we go walking down the street. Again, people can kind of be socially distanced. So that part works out fine. When we do go inside buildings, people have to put their mask on for that. Some people choose to wear a mask during the whole tour when we're outside as well. But otherwise, everything works out nicely. We're in small groups.
Bob Goldsmith with us. He is the owner and tour guide at Detroit Urban Adventures, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. Bob, just another few minutes with you before I will have to say goodbye. Is there anything else that you would like our audience to know about Detroit Urban Adventures, or anything else that we haven't talked about already today?
Right. It's easy to sign up. You would just go to DetroitUrbanAdventures.com, and then you'd see what our tours are. You could see the descriptions, see reviews. Then you just pick the tour that you want. They're each at a certain time of day, so you might pick by what time of day you have available, or you might pick by which tour you prefer. And then you just kind of basically enter the date that you want and the number of people that you're booking for, and then you just pay by credit card, and you're good to go. You'll get a voucher. You don't really need to bring it, or it might be like on your phone if you wanted to show it to us, but we basically know who's coming and who to expect, and we meet you there. Like I said, the tours tend to meet at a coffee shop right downtown on Broadway. I'll put in a little nod to Ash Supply Company. That's the name of the coffee shop. But anyway, yeah, just go to DetroitUrbanAdventures.com, and it's very easy to sign up. If people have questions, if people wanted like a private tour, then they could just call us. And we've got phone number 313-701-1900. So basically the phone or the internet.
That's great. Detroit's a beautiful city, especially the downtown area. They've done amazing things. Quickly, how much are the tours?
Right, they're just $29 a person. And we pack in a lot. People, whether they're locals or visitors from out of town, everybody always feels like they're getting their money's worth. As I said, they do come with, in the morning tour, either a piece of baklava, Winter Creek Town, or the Coney Dog Tooth, so that's part of the price. And then the other tours, the afternoon tours tend to come with a beer at the end, whether it's Detroit Beer Company. Corktown tour, we used to go to the Gaelic League, but now we're substituting like batch brewing or something like that for the beer. So yeah, with the price of $29, you really do learn a lot on our tours, and they're very enjoyable. It's not just architecture. They're not boring. It's history, it's stories, it's art. It's a lot of nice stuff.
I always like to give people experiences as a gift, and this is definitely a good experience to give someone. So maybe instead of the holidays, you can get them a gift certificate, let them go on one of your tours. Bob, thanks so much for being with us. We so appreciate it.
Thank you, and I hope people sign up, whether it's this year as the weather gets colder, or we'll be back at it next year when the weather warms up in spring for sure.
Definitely. And can people buy gift certificates, by the way?
They can call me and we can, figure that out. We should be able to arrange that. I'll get that arranged.
You're like, we can make anything happen. Bob, thanks for being with us. He's a lawyer in the morning and a tour guide in the afternoon, and definitely passionate about Detroit and has a lot of stories to tell. So check them out, Detroit Urban Adventures. We're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast.
This may seem uncomfortable, but so is being hooked to an IV, sleeping in a hospital bed, and fighting for your life. When it comes to COVID-19, comfort is not as important as saving lives. Wearing a mask can greatly reduce the chance of spreading the virus. So mask up, Michigan, every time you leave home.
Hi, my name is Kurt Lawson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Park's COVID-19 Help Hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
Thank you for being with us on the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl. Here with Tyler Keefe in the studios of Civic Center TV in the West Bloomfield area. Always great having everyone with us here. As a reminder, you can catch us on the Birmingham Area Municipal Access, Channel 15 on Comcast, Channel 99 on AT&T. You can also catch us on the radio, 89.3 WBLD, Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. And we also want to say thank you today to the West Bloomfield Township Clerk's Office. They are live streaming today's edition of the Oakland County Megacast on their Facebook page. So we want to say thank you to them and hi to their Facebook partners as well. Excited to bring in our next guest here as we start the last hour of the Oakland County Megacast, Anqunette Sarfoh. Q, it's good to have you on the show. How are you?
I am fantastic, Ronnie. How are you?
I'm great. I am so happy to see all the success that you've been having, and also just sharing your voice on such an important topic. Q, as a lot of people may know, we were former co-workers at Fox 2, and she has gone on to be a cannabis entrepreneur, but also you're such a huge advocate and an important voice for this topic as well here in the state of Michigan. So for those that aren't familiar with your journey, do you want to fill them in?
Oh, okay, sure. Thank you for the opportunity. So as you mentioned, I was the morning anchor at Fox for about 8 years or so. I developed multiple sclerosis around 7 years ago. And as my condition progressed, my doctor suggested that I medically retire because, as we all know, that TV can be stressful, and it wasn't the healthiest thing for me to get up every morning at 3:30 in the morning and then do 4 hours of live TV. And so, and I had some issues that were going on at the time. And so it was a good decision for me to take a step back and focus on my health. And so at the same time, I went from being a fairly healthy person. I completed a couple of marathons back in the day, but was a fairly healthy person, didn't take pharmaceuticals, maybe an allergy pill every once in a while. But after I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, I was put on a total of 9 pharmaceuticals. And unfortunately, I did not feel better. I quite often felt much worse. After the 3rd trip to the hospital for unrelenting vomiting, sorry if anyone's eating right now, my apologies. But after the 3rd trip to the hospital, my husband suggested, he bluntly stated that I should just smoke a joint. And I did smoke a joint, and I realized that my nausea was alleviated. And over the course of a couple of months, in addition to changing my diet is important, and I always tell people that, but I was able to wean myself off of all 9 pharmaceuticals. And realizing that I was using plants, in a diet and also plant-based medicine and cannabis, that there are still so many restrictions surrounding cannabis medication and cannabis use, because not everyone uses it medicinally. And so I decided that it was time, and it was appropriate for me to just, to borrow the phrase of the day, state my truth. And the truth was that I was using this, and people were being unfairly penalized for it. And I was lucky that first to live in Michigan, because it gives citizens the right to write their own laws and push and advocate for the laws that they feel are important. So I joined first MI Legalize. They were the top advocacy group at the time that was pushing for legalization, and I joined their efforts, and they were gracious enough to welcome me wholeheartedly. And I will always have a debt of gratitude to the advocates of this movement, because they welcomed me and they helped me along the way. And through their help, I was able to help other people. So I joined the legalization efforts, and I'm happy to say that in 2018, November of 2018, Election Day, the voters showed what they wanted, and they passed adult use legalization. So in the interim, I was a part of a group of entrepreneurs in the Detroit and Warren area, and we opened Botanic on Election Day in 2018. It was quite successful, and we attracted the eyes of a multi-state operator who gave us an offer within months after we opened Botanic. It took about a year for the sale to be completed, but it was completed in February of this year. So I'm a stock owner of Liberty now. The provisioning center has been renamed Liberty, but quite a few of the employees who started the journey with us at Botanic are still there. And so I always have a special place in my heart for the people there. So let's see, I think I guess that's a nutshell. So we sold Botanic. I'm right now in the process of starting a CBD line. I also want to start a THC line, an edibles line. But unfortunately, the price of a key ingredient right now is, there's a shortage of that in Michigan. That's called THC distillate. And right now it's running about 5 times higher than normal. And so unless I want to sell gummies for $50 a bag, I won't start that branch of my of what I'm doing right now. But instead, I have started to do more with CBD, and I'm going to launch a CBD line hopefully in the next couple of weeks. I'm also a board member of the Michigan Cannabis Industry Association, so we represent business owners and people who are in the industry. We are advocating for a fair and just and equitable industry that we have the privilege of building from the ground up. So I work with municipalities in that aspect. I'm on a state work group that's trying to come up with ways to make sure the social equity and racial equity components of this legislation are addressed fairly. And and I also volunteer with the League of Women Voters because it is important for all of us to exercise our rights to vote. So we are nonpartisan, and but it's a great opportunity for people to know their rights and to express their rights and to share their voice and be involved in politics. No matter where you stand, we all have a voice and we all should be heard. And I think that's just about it.
Which basically means Q has been extremely busy since leaving Fox 2, and I'm so happy to hear that your health is doing better, because it is a hard world to navigate in trying to figure out, that cocktail and the medications and what actually works and what doesn't. So to know that you're able to do this and also be able to speak openly and freely about it, because I think it does open that conversation, and also it takes some of that negative stereotype away from people who do use marijuana for health reasons. And again, just to let people know, you're listening to 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH in Bloomfield Hills. And knowing that, though, Q, I wonder, how are things going, though, because for the federal government, marijuana is still illegal, and so that has to pose a different set of challenges.
Well, as someone who has been kicked out of a few banks, yes, it does. It does indeed. The cannabis industry, for a large part, is still shunned by the banking industry. And so while we have found workarounds to make sure that customers can and patients can complete their transactions safely and efficiently, yes, the banking aspect is the biggest hindrance to furthering the industry. From a personal standpoint, I was kicked out of several banks, and we didn't even have a business at the time. It was just my involvement in cannabis. Basically led to them asking me to please remove my funds from their bank, or they would send it to me. So it affects employees and their abilities to secure mortgages and lines of credit. It's a really unfair system placed on this industry. And mind you, we do pay taxes, and so we are legally compliant. We are more compliant than quite a few other businesses. I don't know. I had to submit 3 years of all of my financial information to be granted a license in this business. We have been thoroughly vetted, and so to deny us banking access is incredibly unfair and short-sighted. So I would think that's the major hindrance in this field right now is the banks that are being hesitant to work with us. And don't get me wrong, some banks are working with us. They tend to work with us on a very secretive basis. We can't disclose who we're banking with and all of that. And then if something happens, as you know, Botanic suffered a break-in, and as soon as that happened and it made news, we lost our banking services that day. So you have to deal with things like that. It's an exciting industry, and it's one that's always changing. But the federal prohibitions affect banking for the industry. But when you look at patient access, I'm from Indiana. Indiana doesn't even have a medical program. And I'm also, when I became a patient here in Michigan, it also gave me the opportunity to become a caregiver, which meant that I was responsible and I was helping people navigate their way through cannabis medicine. And so anyway, you're working with a population whose doctors are saying to them, I want you, why don't you try medical marijuana? But I can't tell you how to use it. Do you have to figure that out on your own? And doctors are prohibited from discussing issues that would lead to better health outcomes for their patients. And they're prohibited because of these restrictive federal laws. We had a lot of veterans work on our petition drive, and that's why in Michigan, there's $25 million set aside for PTSD research, specifically for veterans. But yet at the VA, the doctors are not allowed to talk to their patients about cannabis. There's a huge disconnect, and it's hurting businesses and it's hurting people. So at least descheduling it would be helpful. And I feel a great compromise, because as I was saying earlier, when I look at what's happening in Indiana, when I go home, my mother's church friends just want arthritis cream. It doesn't get you high, but it has THC in it, and so therefore it is not legal in Indiana. So I'm like, hey, meet you at the border. What you do with it is on you. And you'll notice that quite a few of our provisioning centers that are along the borders of either Indiana or Ohio are some of the highest grossing provisioning centers in the state. So there is a demand for this substance, for this plant, and the federal government is holding it up for reasons that are not in the best interests of patients or businesses, in my opinion.
Anqunette Sarfoh with us. She is a board member at the Michigan Cannabis Industry Association, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast this morning. And Q, you mentioned earlier on that you've done a lot of work in terms of addressing the racial injustices that are facing people in the state of Michigan and really all throughout the U.S. regarding cannabis and regarding marijuana. Governor Gretchen Whitmer recently signed into legislation the Clean Slate Act, which would allow people with low-level marijuana charges to be eligible for expungement in some cases. Do you care to talk a little bit about what that bill means for the state of many people in this state here in Michigan, and what that will mean for them as they are retaking part of their life that was essentially taken away from them for using something that is now legal in the state of Michigan?
Glad you asked. I was honored to have the opportunity to speak to the Senate Judiciary Committee in regard to that package of bills. And I'm proud, actually, and relieved. It was a part of a promise that so many of us in the legalization circles, when we went to community centers and church basements and we talked to people, they would always ask us, well, what's going to happen to people who have records if you guys are going to be able to, make money off of it? What about all these people? And because of the law, we could not have both issues on the ballot at the time. And so we promised a lot of people that we were going to fight to make sure expungement is a part of this. And so, yeah, it took, I testified probably maybe a month or two ago. And at that time, I recounted that it had already been like 600 days since the election, and people wanted this. So I'm happy. I'm happy that not only has this passed, but I'm grateful that it passed in a bipartisan manner, that Senator Pete Lucido, along with Senator Sherry Gay Dagnogo, and also Jeff Irwin, Senator Irwin, so many people worked across the aisle because they just saw this not as a Republican issue or a Democratic issue. It's just an issue of fairness. The state's own data showed that these laws were inappropriately applied to more people of color than white people. So to finally try to make amends for that is great. And what that means is people who got caught versus people who did not get caught. For those people who got caught, they are still suffering so many barriers to just having a decent life. Be it, getting employment, gaining employment. There were some people who testified about how it's the difference between making $10 an hour versus $26 an hour. Some people were denied access to trades because they had minor possession records, and that shouldn't be. You serve your time, and you should be able to get on with your life. And one lady in particular brought up a fascinating point that I hadn't realized, but she spoke from the victim's point of view. She's like, when you unfairly restrict people's ability to make more money, you affect their ability to pay restitution to their victims. And I had never even considered that, which I'm ashamed to say I hadn't considered that. But that's a valid point. So no, I feel that this is a great step in the right direction to making amends and acknowledging that this was a mistake, and these people no longer need to suffer because of it. So I'm very happy. I'm grateful that that this package of bills has passed, and it's not just about cannabis crimes. It's about other types of misdemeanors. People shouldn't have to serve a life sentence for either a misjudgment, a mistake. We all make them. So how much punishment is enough? And so I'm glad that the state of Michigan has decided in this case, this amount of punishment has been enough.
Progress can be made when people get behind and stand together and advocate for an issue. So thank you for doing so much on this issue. And Q, what do you think the future of the cannabis industry is going to be here in the state of Michigan? I know in our neighborhood, they've been coming around trying to be able to open, allow for them to one or two to open. In our community, it's been voted down before, so they're trying again. Are more communities opting out? And if so, do you think that's going to start to change as this becomes more streamlined and mainstream?
I think that more communities will opt in. I think right now there's a lot of confusion. I was actually on a conference call with Director Briscoe yesterday as they're looking at ways to work on the law that dictates how these programs will be rolling out across the state, the final draft of the law. And there is a lot of confusion with municipalities, and there's a lot of confusion with municipalities because they are terrified of being sued. And so it's easier for them to just opt out than to engage with the industry. And so we have a lot of people and municipalities that are operating on fear. And I can't blame them because they have to listen to their constituents, and their constituents are also afraid. It's unfortunate that we have a lot of people who are drafting laws about this industry, but they've not given themselves the opportunity to look into the industry. I would go and speak to many city council meetings, and so many people were writing legislations, just writing off the industry en masse, and they had never stepped foot inside a provisioning center. There is still this image that these are dens of ill repute, and people are, and really if you walk into the average provisioning center, it's a 53-year-old guy who has back pain and doesn't want to drink scotch all day. And yeah, of course you have a lot of young people who like the plant, sure, and we can address that. But when it comes to municipalities, there is this misperception that these are drug dens. And so we in the industry have to first find a way to refute that image. And when I owned Botanic, I would always say to people, please come and just check out Botanic. You don't have to have a card. Tell them that Q said you could visit. But now there are lots of other adult use establishments, and they're beautiful facilities. It's I say to people, if you don't care about a liquor store being in your community, you really shouldn't care about a cannabis store being in your community. A lot of people use cannabis because they choose not to actually drink alcohol, and the medical research says it's actually better for you to indulge in occasional cannabis use versus alcohol use. It's much better for your body. So these are people who are actually trying to make healthier choices in some cases. When you look at the fastest growing population of cannabis users is people over 50. And these are people who are using it to get a better night's sleep because they want to do their jobs better. They actually want to go to work and be better employees. And so I think that we in the cannabis industry and our associated groups, we have to continue to show another aspect of the industry and of our businesses, because if we don't, then this industry is going to stagnate. However, I do feel that the financial implications of the pandemic this year have some municipalities taking a look at their budgets and wondering how can they add to their revenue base. And cannabis has proven to be a pretty good bet. It was deemed an essential business during the pandemic, and we have seen people have been leaning on provisioning centers to learn more about ways to manage stress, aches and pains. Some people are losing insurance and they're looking for alternatives to some pharmaceuticals. And so we are an asset to communities, and hopefully as more and more people are willing to take a look at us, just an unbiased view at the businesses in your community, you'll see that we are one of the most compliant businesses in any community. And our goal is to be successful and to help people. So yeah, we're good for neighborhoods. So hopefully more and more municipalities will see that this is a safe way to add to their tax revenue and help the people of their community. It could be a win-win if they just give us a chance.
Anqunette Sarfoh with us. She's a board member of the Michigan Cannabis Industry Association, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. Q, just another couple minutes with you. And as someone who has family and has friends who are also afflicted with multiple sclerosis, and knowing how much that cannabis has aided them in their survival and their ability to deal with the pain that comes with MS, I can't thank you enough for your advocacy for those with MS in our local community. Just another minute or so with you before we have to say goodbye. Is there anything else that would be important for our audience to know today?
Just get out there and vote. It matters. Please get out there and vote. That's it. And welcome cannabis businesses into your community, and look out for the launch of my brand, Culture with the Q, hopefully in a couple of weeks.
Well, when you launch it and you get it up and running, we'll have you back on the show, because we could continue this conversation for quite some time. Thank you again for your time, and again, having the courage to stand up and be an advocate and use your position and your voice to change so many other lives. We're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast, and when we come back, we are going to be turning our focus to politics, because as Q said, get out and vote. Election day is right around the corner. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
We don't always see eye to eye.
Like who scored the best recruits?
Who's gonna be who?
And whether we wear green
or blue.
But one thing we can all agree on to help stop the spread of COVID-19. Wear a mask.
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 The ball's in your court, Michigan.
Michigan, we still need to stay careful, because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart, keep wearing a mask in public, and if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus.
Thank you for tuning in to the Oakland County Megacast Friday edition. Just about 30 more minutes or so here with you. And then we'll be wrapping up the Megacast for the week. But two great guests that we have on the show quite often, but they're always enlightening and informative. So we're happy to welcome back with us Dave Dulio. He's the professor of political science and the director of the Center for Civic Engagement over at the Oakland University. Professor, thank you for being with us. I have to admit, I did not see the town halls last night. Did you catch them?
I flip back and forth between the two, and as you can imagine, it's tough to catch anything when you're going back and forth.
Right. But just looking at the news clips today and the rehash of what happened, it seemed like both forums really was a reflection of each of the candidates and their styles.
Oh, I think that's on the money. It was on NBC, Donald Trump being Donald Trump. I mean, he has never shied away from his approach, which is at times combative, entertaining to some degree, and Joe Biden trying to play the maybe slow and steady wins the race character.
Do you think when they hold these forums, I don't know if they're going to debate again or not, or if that's just going to be done and we're going into, the last few weeks, although many states, including Michigan, people are currently voting. Do these actually have any type of impact on undecided voters?
Yeah, I'm not sure if how many undecided voters are watching a town hall that features one candidate. I think that my hunch is the audience on NBC was mainly Trump supporters and the audience on ABC was mainly Biden supporters.
Any surprises that came out of last night?
Not really. I mean, maybe that Joe Biden kind of came out and talked about court packing, an issue that's been dogging him for the last couple of weeks. He seemed to commit to giving his stance or being more clear than he has been in recent days before Election Day. But there was even a bit of an out in that one.
Yeah, why doesn't he just come out and say what he wants to say? I don't understand his philosophy behind it. And I know he was saying that the reason why he didn't want to talk about it last night is that would become the headline.
Well, right, and I'm with you. I take that back. I know why he doesn't want to talk about it, but he talks about it as if it's an issue that is different from other issues that are out there that he would have to take a lead on early in his administration. What to do about coronavirus, or what's his plan with that? What's his plan on healthcare? All of those issues are forward-looking as well. And he is not going to, apparently, to this point, talk about whether or not he wants to pack the court. I don't see a big difference, but he's not doing it because he doesn't want to make anybody mad. If he comes out and says we're not going to do it, that alienates the progressive wing of the party that wants to see that happen. If he says that he's going to do it, and again, let me interject there, he can't do it by himself, right? Let's be clear about that. Many of the things presidential candidates talk about, they can't do by themselves. There's been a lot of discussion about from the Biden campaign about taxes and the Trump tax cuts. He can't repeal those by himself. It would take an act of Congress that he would sign into law. The same thing applies to whether or not the number of justices on the Supreme Court would be expanded. It would take an act of Congress and he would have to sign it into law. So the other half of him not wanting to make anybody mad is he doesn't want to alienate sort of those middle of the road voters who might still be persuadable. It is not a terribly popular policy alternative when the public is polled on it. So maybe he's trying to have it both ways. He's trying not to make anybody angry.
David Dulio with us, Professor of Political Science and Director of the Center for Civic Engagement at Oakland University, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. And David, part of the controversy of these town halls this week was that they were scheduled at the exact same time. So those that, and maybe that plays right into those who are going to watch Joe Biden's town hall are going to watch his town hall. Those who are going to watch Donald Trump's town hall are going to watch Donald Trump's. But then you get into the networks as well who are presumably trying to provide the voting public with all the information they need to be able to make their decision. And then you go to the candidates as well, who are butting heads about a second debate with the president's recent COVID-19 positive result and his battle with the disease, albeit briefly, and ultimately decided to do their own events instead of one debate together and come to some sort of a compromise. How does that reflect on the candidates? How does that reflect on the news networks? And how's that going to potentially impact voters?
Well, I think it's pretty simple. Everything's divisive these days, right? I mean, it's tough to find something where there's common ground. And NBC took a lot of heat from their own staff for scheduling this town hall last night at the same time as the one with Biden on ABC. And I think NBC did the right thing because, according to them, and I do remember this happening, they had a town hall with Biden a few months ago, and it was also at 8 p.m. for 1 hour. And I think the network was trying to be careful about giving both candidates the same platform, the same opportunity. If they had done it at a different time or for a longer period, it would have been uneven. And so I think that was probably the right choice from NBC.
Plus, this isn't 1978 where you had to actually get up and flip the channel to turn it. You have a remote now. You can flip it back and forth from the, luxury of your couch, or you have a DVR and you can record one or the other. And plus you can get it the next day because they're always streaming, and allows you access to both sides as well. So that is the good thing. Can we talk a little bit about the state elections? I mean, they are throwing so much money at the state of Michigan right now between, Gary Peters and, John James's election, and not only that one, but I'm surprised at the number of ads for and against Ryan Berman.
Right. It depends where you live, whether or not you're going to see those state house ads. But if you are fortunate or maybe unfortunate to live in that district, you're getting bombarded with ads that you wouldn't necessarily think are coming. But you're absolutely right. The U.S. Senate race is getting incredible attention from across the country, with money pouring in to the candidates' campaigns themselves, but also from both party committees as well as outside interest groups that are trying to have a say in the race. I'll be very interested to see what the total dollar figure is spent on this race when we get that later this year. It's going to be a huge number.
And just think, all that money, if they weren't spending it on their campaigns and they actually put it towards issues and problems within the country, it could solve a lot of things.
Sure. And in the 2016 cycle, so the last presidential cycle, that's the comparison we should make. We were approaching $6 billion spent on all races all year. That's a lot. You're right. That's a lot of money that could go for PPE, that could go for technology to help kids who need a better internet connection at home so that they can learn during a pandemic more efficiently and effectively. But we're also in a country that has the First Amendment that has been it's been decided for 40 years almost since a famous case in 1976 called Buckley versus Vallejo, that people are free, basically this is a paraphrase, right? People are free to spend as much as they like to try and get elected and to try to influence who gets elected. It falls under the freedom of speech.
David Dulio with us from Oakland University, Professor of Political Science and the Director of the Center for Civic Engagement. Back on the national scale, we also began the Supreme Court confirmation hearings this week for Amy Coney Barrett, and that's kind of taken, surprisingly enough, a back seat with all the other national politics stories that we've had this week from the president and from Joe Biden, especially with the town halls. Give us an update on that process. Has we seen any surprises so far in the confirmation hearing, or anything that should be of note to people from the candidate or from those that are interviewing or grilling this candidate as she's getting ready to potentially be confirmed to the Supreme Court?
Yeah, not really. It's pretty much gone according to plan, or according to how from the Republican side anyway, or it's met expectations, right? I think that everybody knew that Judge Coney Barrett would come in incredibly well prepared and be ready to face Senate questioning. Everybody knew that Republican senators would do their level best to make it clear that she's going to be confirmed and that she's a brilliant jurist, et cetera, and that Democrats would try and do what they could to knock her down a couple of notches, and in addition call the process a sham and try to maybe delegitimize it a little bit. But she performed, I think everybody would agree, very, very well. I think the one of the highlights of the questioning was when she was asked if she had any notes, and she said, "I have this notepad," and she was asked to hold it up, and it was blank, right? So she was it was quite a contrast, put it that way, between Judge Barrett, who was there with no notes, no binders, no briefing books, nothing, and all the senators had all of their binders and all of their charts and their graphs, and she just did it from memory, which pretty impressive.
Yeah, I've only been dipping in here and there, and every time I've tuned in, she's definitely held her own against the line of questioning. Plus, there don't seem to be any bombshells coming out. It's not like what we went through with Kavanaugh at all.
Correct, and she's going to be confirmed unless something crazy happens in the next 2 weeks. The committee is going to vote. The Senate Judiciary Committee is going to vote on her nomination on the 22nd, I believe, so next Thursday, and that'll be a party line vote, I imagine. That will send the nomination to the floor of the Senate. There will be some debate, and that will, I think, culminate the next week, maybe a week later, a couple days after that, and she'll be confirmed probably by the end of this month.
David Dulio with us, professor of political science at Oakland University, director of their Center for Civic Engagement as well. And when we talk about Judge Coney Barrett and her likely at this point inevitable nomination, not nomination, but confirmation to the Supreme Court of the United States, we also got to talk about her stance as what's known as an originalist. The letter of the law is as it was written and as it was originally intended. For those that are not familiar with that terminology or don't understand how that maybe is applicable in the modern sense, because these laws, a lot of these laws were enacted at different times throughout our history. How does that ideology as a judge, how does that match up to the world that we're living in, keeping those documents as they're originally intended, but with the intention, but with the adjustment for the way our modern society works?
Well, I think we've got to wait and see what the kind of decisions that she will engage in, that she will write, the kind of opinions that she will write. But to answer your question specifically, right, originalists are those who argue that what's in the Constitution is in the Constitution, and we should read those words literally, and go back to what the framers were thinking when they wrote the Constitution, and refer to notes that were taken at the Constitutional Convention, refer to arguments about the Constitution like the Federalist Papers. What were the framers thinking? What did they have in mind? What did they want the Constitution to mean? And of course, the trick is to get that document to live for 240 some years, right? And to make it applicable today. The Constitution in many areas is incredibly vague. And that's a good thing and a bad thing, because it in both instances, it's left up to interpretation, right? We have to rely on judges today to interpret what those words mean. And some, like the originalists, would say, well, that it means what it meant back then. It means what the words are. And others who would subscribe to another philosophy, you might call it the living constant philosophy, would say, well, that's all fine and dandy, but what is that? How do we update that language for today?
So you also are the director for the Center for Civic Engagement, and you've had some great talks and programs recently. Anything else on the agenda coming up before the election?
Absolutely. We've had, and thanks for the opportunity to plug it. We've had a really great session with Nolan Finley and Stephen Henderson on civility in politics. And just this last Monday, we had a talk by a guy named Stan Greenberg, who is a pollster from the DC area, who coined the term Reagan Democrats in the 1980s here in Southeast Michigan in Macomb County. If folks are interested and weren't able to attend them, they're both linked on our Facebook page, which is @OUCCE. And you can also find our next event, which is going to be next Thursday at 5 p.m. We're doing a series this semester called Office Hours, where we feature different faculty to talk about different topics of interest. Next Thursday at 5 p.m. is going to be one on an election preview. So myself, two other colleagues, John Klemansky and Nicole Matthew, will take audience questions about what to expect on Election Day, what we might look forward to between next Thursday and November 3rd.
I was able to catch some of the talk with Nolan Finley and Stephen Henderson. It was a great session. So thank you all for even coming up with it and then having the discussion. So again, that's on your Facebook page. People can dip into that quickly. Anything we didn't touch on that you want to get out there, or we're just going to ride this storm out until Election Day and have you back on then?
I think your metaphor is better than the one I was going to say. It's a sprint to the finish between now and Election Day, but the ride the storm out might be better.
Well, Professor, as always, thank you for being with us. We do appreciate it. And we'll talk to you, if not before the elections, definitely after the election. And again, everyone, if you do have a few moments, check them out on Facebook. It's Oakland University Center for Civic Engagement. And listen to the talks that you provided to the public. They were great. So thank you again for all that you're doing. And happy election to you.
Same to you. Thanks for having me.
Tyler and I are going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast, and then when we come back, we'll round out the show with Debbie Binder, the West Bloomfield Township Clerk. See how things are going, because we all talk about Election Day, but people are actually voting right now. So we'll see how things are going over at the clerk's office. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Hi, I'm Dr. Faust, the medical director for the Oakland County Health Division. The most important thing you can do to prevent the spread of illness is to wash your hands thoroughly and often. Follow these 6 easy steps every time you wash your hands. Step 1, turn on the sink and wet your hands with warm water. Step 2, apply soap to your hands and lather between your fingers, under your nails, and the front and back of your hands and wrists. Step 3, wash your hands by scrubbing them together for at least 20 seconds. Step 4, rinse your hands with warm, clean water. And step 5, dry your hands with a clean cloth towel, a paper towel, or hot air blow dryer. If you're using a cloth towel, make sure to change it often. For handheld faucets, turn off the water using a paper towel instead of your bare hand. Step 6, if you're using a paper towel, throw it away. Practice healthy habits like washing your hands after coughing or sneezing into them to keep you and others healthy. Go to oakgov.com/health or call Nurse on Call at 1-800-848-5533 to learn more.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
18 days until Election Day.
So many days.
I will say for me, what makes me so happy about Election Day is that the day after Election Day, hopefully all of the ads go away. With us right now is Debbie Binder. She is the West Bloomfield Township Clerk, and they are also streaming us today on their Facebook page. So we want to say thank you to Debbie and her team over there for doing that as well. People are already voting. How's it going?
We have been really busy. We already have 52% of our registered voters have requested absentee ballots, and we already have the same number, 52% of those in, which means if you just look at the time right now, we have a 27% turnout right now. And if you look at what we anticipate is an 85% turnout of our registered voters, we're at a 32% turnout based on just the absentee ballots received so far. So we have been busy. We've been issuing about 250 ballots a day. We have had a huge increase in registered voters. So we have been between registering voters, issuing and receiving absentee ballots. We have been in full gear, full throttle gear.
What was the percentage of the outcome in previous elections?
We have consistently been a 75% turnout in a presidential election. And historically, we've been about 50% in a gubernatorial. Well, our last gubernatorial in 18, we were up to 66% turnout. So we do know we're going to see an increase. We're forecasting somewhere between 80 and 90%. And we're really working with numbers to forecast of about 85% turnout. We do anticipate it's been steadily 75%. And we know we're going to see an increase.
Debbie Binder with us. She is the West Bloomfield Township Clerk, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. And Debbie, as you've said, your office has already been receiving an influx of returned absentee ballots from those that have registered and received those as requested. And with that, with your office issuing about 250 a day, as you said previously, there still is those issues in returning these ballots, particularly with the mail, but there are also drop boxes now, multiple places at West Bloomfield Town Hall where you can drop off those ballots. So let's start with the mail issues. What are some of those, because we've had those before, we had those definitely in the primaries, we've heard about them ad nauseum up until this point. What are some of the issues that people in West Bloomfield and maybe even in surrounding areas are currently having in terms of the mail in relation to their absentee ballots, and how can they best work around that to make sure that their voice is heard in this election?
Well, I'm going to begin and end with the same comment, and then I'll get into those questions. Be prepared and return your ballot early. That is the best way to prevent any kind of a problem. What we saw in August were delays in mail, where mail was taking about 10 to 13 days. I know you and I talked about that extensively. This time things were moving along pretty smoothly until about 2 days ago, where we did see a change. We had far fewer ballots than we would have expected returned for Tuesday and Wednesday. So it seems like today we have a normal amount coming in, and I'm hopeful that calls that were made to kind of see what was going on will inspire those ballots to continue being mailed properly. But we do want to encourage people, if they're able, return it to Town Hall. Use one of the drop boxes on either side of the building. We have one on the west side facing the library, one on the east side facing the police station. Utilize those. They're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're under camera surveillance, and they are checked multiple times a day, including on weekends. So that is your best way to return a ballot. But we also recognize that we have a large population that has to rely on the mail. That being our overseas and military voters, our snowbirds, our college students, and people in nursing homes who may or may not be able to get a ride to Town Hall. So the message to them is mail that ballot quickly and don't delay. You will see a reminder coming out on the October 21st beacon, a sticker on the front that reminds voters, don't delay, return your absentee ballot today. And that message is critical. Mailing your ballot early, one, helps us out just in terms of having things ready for Election Day, but it ensures that your ballot will be received by 8 p.m. on Election Day. And it also allows time for us to cure any issue with your ballot, like if you forgot to sign it, or there's a concern with the signature not matching, it gives us time to cure that. So I can't stress enough this election more than any. Make sure you allow time. Don't delay. Get your ballot on its way back to Town Hall as soon as you can.
And with that, what are some of the issues that you're seeing with some of the people returning them early?
Okay, so what we always have is people forget to sign their absentee ballot. Now, when they fill out an application, we ask for their phone number and their email. Some people are hesitant to give it because of all of those contacts they're getting from third-party organizations, and that we have to provide based on Freedom of Information Act. But it's good to know that your phone number and your email are exempt from Freedom of Information Act information. We're not sharing that information with third-party organizations. So you are safe to give it. What it allows us to do is, in the event that your signature doesn't match what we have on file, or you forgot to sign it, we can contact you quickly using your email or your cell phone number. If you don't put that, we will send a letter by registered mail, but the closer it gets to the election day, the more challenging that is to cure, because we can't get a letter to you in time. That information is helpful. We make every attempt possible to contact a voter where there's a concern that the signature doesn't match or that their ballot wasn't signed. Now, when we talk about a signature matching, because there has been quite a bit of concern about that, people think we're matching it to their signature when they were 18 and they signed their voter registration form. That's not what we're matching it to. Typically, it's your driver's license or your photo ID, although we do have what we call a MasterCard file that has signatures back, previous to that. So we make every attempt to match it to a signature we have on file, and when we contact a voter where the signature doesn't match, we do discuss the options to make sure that they have an opportunity to cure that if their signature has changed over time. We have two populations that are most affected by that. Our 18 to 25-year-olds are developing a professional signature. Their signature may change. And then our elderly are people who've developed a tremor or some kind of a physical impairment that changes their signature. And we do have processes in place for that. So the best thing to do is call your clerk's office, because we will talk you through the opportunities to cure. But again, I go back to return your ballot early. So if there is a problem, we have time to reach you and you have time to cure the problem.
Clerk Binder, I was on the Civic Center campus at Town Hall yesterday and noticed as they're coming in toward Town Hall, there's a large sign out there that mentions additional hours at the clerk's office for election-related issues and questions. Can you go into some of the details about those extra hours that are being provided to voters in West Bloomfield, where they can come to the clerk's office or call the clerk's office and get their questions answered? Because I know people who are voting by absentee ballot in West Bloomfield and other municipalities. It can be confusing for some people, and some people do need to have a lot of questions to get answered so that they can make sure that they are sending their ballots back prudently and their votes will be counted without having to have additional contact in order to confirm them.
Our goal is to make it as easy for people to have access to the ballot as legally permissible. So in addition, we want to make it as easy for people to get their ballot returned early. So we have expanded our hours. We are normally open daily from 8 to 4:30. That's every day. You can come in during those times, Monday through Friday, to vote by absentee ballot. But we have expanded it to this Saturday, October 17th, and the following Saturday, October 24th, from 9 to noon. We will be open to the public to come in and vote by absentee ballot, as well as October 31st, which is the Saturday just preceding the election. We will be open from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. for absentee voting, for people to come in, ask questions, and get their questions answered. They can spoil a ballot. They can request an absentee ballot. Want to make it as easy as possible for them to do so. The one thing I will say is people can request an absentee ballot up to 4 p.m. on the Monday before the election on November 2nd. But if you do come in on Monday between 8 and 4, you will have to vote that ballot here at Town Hall. You cannot take a ballot from Town Hall on that Monday, but you can come in on Saturday, request that absentee ballot, and take it with you.
How are you looking as far as poll workers goes? Do you have enough? You still need more? And what's the very last date someone can volunteer?
Okay, well, overall, we're in good shape, in large part due to our community partners like yourself and the fact that we put an ad in the Beacon and we've been working our social media. That since August, when we were challenged with people, we were losing people during a COVID environment as quickly as we could recruit them. So we made the time after the primary. The primary focus was to recruit. We are up 276 election workers since then. We have increased our list. So we are in good shape. However, we will be having a second shift this time, which will start at 10 p.m. and go it's scheduled till 8 in the morning, but I believe we'll be done sometime between 3 and 5 in the morning. So if you're a person that doesn't need a lot of sleep, or just somebody who's excited by being involved in the process, I would get in touch with us at Town Hall because we'll be taking names constantly. We are in pretty good shape, but people call off and things change, and we will always need to have a list of backup in the event that something does change. So there's no deadline. Even if you can't work this election, it's still worth applying if it's something that interests you, because over the next few years, we've needed to expand that database so that we have sufficient workers. We get our people back year after year. I always tell you it's a long day and everyone complains, but they all come back. But after 10 years or so of service, we do tend to see some retirements, and we get about 15 to 20 retirements a year. So we are looking to expand that list to make up for who we lose to retirement and who may not be able to work, or if their comfort level this year isn't, if they're not comfortable working COVID. So it's never too late to contact us to apply. We welcome anybody who wants to get involved in the process, and I can guarantee you that almost everyone that does get involved finds it extremely rewarding.
So when it comes to election day, because there are going to be so many absentee or mail-in ballots, how long do you think it's going to take to count all of them? Will it be the next day before you're finished, or do you think you're going to be able to get it all done pretty much that day?
I wish I could tell you I thought we would be quick. I don't believe West Bloomfield will be an early reporter on election day. Part of that is sheer volume. We're anticipating between 32 and 38,000 absentee ballots. But the other unique aspect to West Bloomfield is we have all 25 precincts have a 3-page, 2-sheet ballot, which means instead of putting 32 to 38,000 ballots through the machine, we're going 64 to 74,000 ballots through there. What would be 32 to 36,000 ballots through that machine. So it's going to double the labor involved in tabulating those absentee ballots. So I don't think we will be an early reporter. My hope is that we're done between 3 and 5 in the morning and hopefully reporting soon after that. The best way to get the results as they're coming in is to follow the county's website and refresh it. Those results are transmitted by a secure cellular modem as soon as that machine is done tabulating and the polls are closed. So that is the quickest way to get the results, watching the county's website and watching the results come in. But I think there is an unknown. We have never had a 3-page, 2-sheet ballot. That will definitely add to the time and the volume turning out for this election. Highest number we've ever processed of absentee ballots is 16,783 absentee ballots. We're looking at a minimum of 30 to 32,000 absentee voters, and then again, 2 pages per voter. It's going to be a longer night. My hope is by Wednesday night we'll have results. The important message is if it takes time, it's not because you have to worry that something fraudulent's going on. It's important to know that we're taking the time to make sure we're doing it correctly and to make sure that every ballot is counted. And with that sheer volume, it is going to take time. So don't, exercise patience. We know people want the results quickly. We want the results as quickly as possible. It's important to remember that the election specialist and my staff and me aren't going to be sleeping until they're counted. So if it goes 36 hours, we're up for a marathon time. And if it goes 72, we're really exhausted. So there are human beings behind an absent voter counting board. And our goal is to get those ballots counted as quickly as possible too, so that you get your results and we are able to get some rest from the weeks that we've been having. But there is the reality of the volume and having that 2-page ballot or 2-sheet ballot.
West Bloomfield Township Clerk Debbie Binder with us, joining us on the show today. The Clerk's office, also our Facebook partner on today's program, broadcasting live via Facebook Live. Debbie, just another minute with you before we have to say goodbye for today. Is there any other information that would be important for our audience to know, or anything else that you would like to mention on today's interview?
Okay, I'm going to just reiterate again, return that ballot early. You don't need postage this year. The state has actually paid the postage, so you will see an indicia on there that says postage not necessary as long as it's mailed within the United States. So you don't need to worry about postage. We're still getting plenty back with postage because people want to make sure it gets returned, but you don't need it. It will go to our permit. Also, one important thing to know is you cannot return a ballot for somebody else, or you cannot go around and get ballots. The clerk's office also, there was a little question this week of whether somebody from the clerk's office was going door to door asking people for their ballots. That is not something we practice. So if somebody comes to your door requesting to take your ballot back to town hall, it is not a representative of the clerk's office. And you need to know that the only people that can be in possession of your ballot are the voter, a mail carrier, an election official, or a member of the voter's household, or their immediate family who has requested that they return the ballot. So it's really important to know that you can't just get your neighbor's ballot and bring it back for them. They're important. This is not something that's unique to West Bloomfield. Again, in West Bloomfield, we don't create election law. We adhere to state and federal election law, and all of those requirements are what is stated by election law.
Debbie, always great having you on the show. We appreciate your time. Try to get some sleep before the election because it's going to be a long day for you. That's going to wrap it up here for us on the Oakland County Megacast. Everyone have a great weekend.